Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have James and Krista here. You both have written this amazing book that has a lot of great lessons from each of the unique journeys that you've had today. There's a lot on, I think, that you can use over as an entrepreneur, that translates over to your life, but also just improving as a human being. And I think there's a lot of value that people can get from it around that. But Krista, you have a whole background as a writer. You created the Culture Design Lab. You've done a lot of research and interviewing people over there. So there's a lot of knowledge from that that's coming to this book. But also, James, you have an amazing track record in business, and what you've been able to accomplish with Jamba Juice has been really transformative for the company and just for that whole industry in general. It's an amazing place. It's brought a lot of joy to a lot of people. So I'm excited to have you guys here and to get into the journeys you both have had and what you've written over here as well. Thanks for coming on.
Ben, thanks for having us on.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, James, I'd love to start with you and talk a bit about your journey in business. How did you get interested in running a company and wanting to be involved as a business leader? How did that passion of yours start?
And maybe I'll take you back really to my beginning and kind of formative years. I'm a St. Louis, Missouri native. Was the first member of my family to graduate from college. So that's a really important part of my origin story. So you'd imagine there are not many business people in my family, and there weren't role models or examples. But a loving, nurturing family that made significant investments and sacrifices in my education, and there was certainly a ton of cheerleading from mom and dad to kind of encourage me on the journey. I started my career at the Coca-Cola Company in their Minute Maid division in a sales job that led to sales leadership roles over time. And then I moved to Ralston Purina Nestle, where I spent really most of my formative years, 15, 16 years, commercial sales and leadership roles across the time there, and then moved into executive roles at both the Gillette Company and Safeway stores, and then finished my operating career as CEO at Jamba, and was there 7 plus years as CEO of Jamba. And then I've spent a ton of time in the boardroom. So I've sat on public and private company boards over the last 20 years. I've been either lead independent director or chair 7 times across those experiences, and then had the good fortune with Krista to create Culture Design Lab, where we work with customers on strategy and culture and change, and we've found a way to balance our client workload, and we've written a couple books, and we're especially proud and excited to talk to you and your audience about Culture Design Lab, how to build high-performing organizations with purpose.
Yeah. Were you doing Culture Design Lab while you were involved at Jamba at all? I mean, it seems like you had a pretty busy plate at that point.
No, this is more my second act. The active board career and the consulting practice and writing is really a second act for me, kind of post my operating career. But I was more a practitioner of the principles that you'll find in the book throughout my leadership career.
Well, what did Jamba Juice look like in 2008 when you got involved? And you left in 2016, I think. So it's quite the transformation. Now it's a household name brand. It's incredible what was done. What did it look like then? How did you get it?
Yeah, 2008, the company had just come off of going public maybe 2.5 years prior, and it had hit tough times, as sometimes companies do when they're scaling. We were in the midst of the Great Recession, if your audience takes themselves back to 2008. So the assignment was really a turnaround and transformation assignment for me, and it was uncertain whether the company would have the wherewithal and ability to turn itself around. And the work that we did on culture and strategy and change were all essential to the transformation of the company and the brand during those times.
I definitely want to get into that. Just Krista, just to bring it to you for a second, were you thinking when you're watching your dad's journey were you thinking that there could be a lot of lessons here I could build into a system for other companies? Like, how did this idea develop of this lab that you guys built together?
So when he was at Jamba, I was younger. This is like high
Yeah.
school years. So even though there were things that I was taking in, and I had those great role models and wonderful nurturing, I there when you're young, it's hard to really absorb those things. It's
Mhm.
more learnings that have come in the past several years as we've been working together. Uh, and even especially in writing these books together, we do a lot of interviews with executives and CEOs, but I do interviews with just me and dad to kind of get the texture of like his amazing experiences, and just doing those and picking his brain about things like, oh, what would you say about this? I'm struggling with this
Yeah.
section of this chapter, has given me so much more insight into both
Uh,
the dedication and just like incredible like hard work ethic of his career, and more insight into him as a person. It's been really cool to see our relationship grow and develop as your relationship with your parents changes as you when you're an adult, and it's been just really a beautiful thing.
Did you come to your dad with the idea of the culture design lab? Like, how did this idea happen?
Well, this was born out of dad's 30 plus years as an operating executive, and he has always put a huge importance on family and on intergenerational learning. So it's really, he wanted me involved from the start in this work. And originally, start before we even kind of had the name Culture Design Lab, where had started working together on some of this culture design uh, work with organizations, and how do we really operationalize this stuff that is sometimes thought of as the soft stuff, but that we view culture as just a fundamental part of how to make organizations more resilient and successful over time.
So, James, we talked about a little bit before how you thought culture was a key piece of the Jamba turnaround story. What can you just like dive in a little more on that? Like, what specifically did you do culture wise there? The way you shaped culture, created culture that was so important that led to that success, and then how have you kind of taken those lessons and channeled that with other companies you work with in this venture you have now with Krista?
Well, the first thing is just listening. We talk about empathy being such an important skill set. So, for me, kind of day one, week one on the job at Jamba, we uh, initiated a town hall where everybody at the corporate headquarters for Jamba, we brought them in and exposed a bit about my background and uh, how I thought about building great businesses and great brands and what might be required. But mostly, I wanted to be able to get inputs and feedback from them. And we've got this simple practice that we do. We actually have a client we're working on with today, and it's three simple questions. What do you hope um, our, the company would start doing? In this case, it would be Jamba. So start. What are the things that the company should stop, and what are the things that the company should continue doing? So if you can envision, 100 plus associates in the corporate headquarters, they're meeting this new CEO, and I'm posing that question. So, and I still have those index cards from that first day somewhere packed away. Uh, but would refer to those often, and it allowed me to, codify some themes and find the first places to kind of take some action inside the company. So there were those kind of discussions with the employees inside the company. Same kind of discussion with the board of directors on what they hoped, this new CEO would do at the company. We talked to suppliers. So that exercise was foundational to kind of setting, kind of a roadmap or a blueprint to transform the company. And what I would tell you, the learnings ended up being, Jamba is this fun, exciting brand. So they don't want this guy coming from, and I was coming from Safeway and Gillette. So if you're a Jamba, you don't want anybody that is going to make overly corporate this fun, energetic brand. So some of the things that made Jamba, fun and exciting, they wanted to maintain those. So those would be the continues. But there were other things like accountability and discipline and just solid processes that were missing that we put in place to really unlock over time the full potential of the company. But that listening exercise was really an important starting point.
I mean, you also, I think, are really into surveys and designing comprehensive surveys. How do you use them effectively? I think that's one of the key pieces of understanding culture and shaping culture.
Yeah, it's another way to listen. And what we talk about in the book is we give the readers lots of different ways to listen. So that town hall example is one. Over the course of my career at Jamba, I'd have breakfasts or lunches with cross-functional teams inside the company. I view that as being important. And then I'm a big proponent of the Gallup Q12 surveys, which I'd used in various iterations, starting at Gillette and across a number of other places, including Jamba, pulse surveys, but just actively gathering feedback from employees and customers to inform, critical strategic decisions is always helpful to building great companies.
Mm-hmm. So, Krista, how have you kind of taken some of these, experiences that your dad has had and some of the lessons and channel that when you're working with new companies? I mean, there's so many ways you can evaluate a new company and what they need to do. I mean, you could probably go in tons of directions. How do you kind of focus in on the immediate problems and try to figure out solutions for them?
I definitely go back to the empathy piece that Dad mentioned. One of the things we talk about in the book is doing a culture audit or an archaeological dig is what we like to call it, but it's looking at all the artifacts that not physical, but things, written artifacts like your mission, values, those types of things. What do we say we are doing? And then really dig into what are we actually doing, either through interviews, through surveys, through roundtable discussions, reviewing HR policies. So we go into an organization with an open mind, and we work directly with CEOs because we believe that culture has to be led from the top in order to operationalize it all the way through the organization and for it to be this a living part of the company. One thing that I also say is really helpful when we work with particularly CPG, restaurant, and retail clients is Dad's amazing breadth and depth of experience. And so it's like, yeah, he's like, I don't need he's got the shorthand down. So he's able to really get into the nitty gritty right away with folks, which is really valuable. And it's been really amazing sort of a crash course for me, even just sitting in a meeting with him. I mean, it's incredible to see, like, you could just ask one simple question. Do you all have XYZ process in place for this cross-functional group to stay in connection? And there's these connections that are made like that. They're like, I hadn't thought of that. So it's that breadth of experience that allows these things to come to light that aren't necessarily obvious, but are just top of mind for him, and I do feel like I'm learning that there's like a certain language and a skill there that is really cool to learn from.
That's great. That's great that you recognize that, and that you are open to learning too. So when you think about just like the transformation that Jamba had, I mean, it's really incredible. It was a brand that I don't think really many people knew at the time you got involved, James, and now it's something everyone, at least in the United States, knows. Obviously, there's a lot of work that's done in that, from there's the actual product itself to the marketing, but there's a lot of other things too. Like if you just had to look at it and say what these were the top, couple most important things you did to help make it, have the success it has today. What would you say those are?
I think the focus around creating a high performance culture uh, that was inclusive and very focused on the job that we had to do for the consumer. And Jamba was even predating me, was a well known brand, would have showed up in the zeitgeist Saturday Night Live and other places. So it was a very, very popular brand, popular enough and good enough performance to go public. A couple years prior to me showing up, but it had been uh, not run well post being a public company. So I think the places where I was able to have some impact was to really focus the company on a more thoughtful growth strategy where we could find ways to grow profitably, uh, strengthening the culture so that we were more resilient uh, as a company, in creating a place that people wanted to work. Those were all important. So, kind of maintaining the core values of the company, but setting us up to grow and play bigger into the future. We expanded into new geographies, including some international markets during the time that I was at the company.
When did you think that it was the kind of the right time for you to leave?
At the 7, 8 year mark, that was a great time for me to transition. And then I transitioned into more active work in the boardroom, which I absolutely
Yeah.
love and have spent a lot of time in the boardroom. I've, spent last 20 plus years in the boardroom. I often talk about I've spent 15,000 hours. So you talk about mastery. I've spent 15,000 hours in my board work over the last 20 years.
What does that board work look like? I mean, it's a different role than being a CEO. You're the chair of the Honest Company. Honest Company is a great company as well. What can you do there that's really instrumental while being on these boards? I mean, is it just influencing the CEO
Yeah, the
mostly?
the work of board work is going to be different company to company,
Mm,
but governance and that kind of work is more providing wise counsel
mhm.
to the management team and CEO of those companies. There are certainly fiduciary responsibilities. One of the things that I like to say from a board perspective is most days I want to look like help to the CEO and the management team versus work.
Mm.
Uh, and I think I've built that kind of skill set and kind of point of view on board governance and the work that I do over 20 plus boards, and I've played pretty significant leadership roles in those board experiences and have made mistakes. And I think I'm at a place now where uh, most days I look like help to the management teams and CEOs that I work with across really the fantastic brands that I work with. So I sit on the Cava board, which is one of the fastest growing restaurant chains. I sit on the Simply Good Foods board, great brands. And then obviously Honest Company. I sit on several other private company boards as well.
Krista, are you evaluating social media and social media strategies for these different partners you have? I'm sure you are. Like, what does that look like for these brands? Because that's something today. If it's like a make it or break it for a company.
Yeah, so while our work doesn't necessarily focus as much on social media and marketing, we definitely view that as an important part of the way we holistically look at culture. I mean, social media is the way most people are going to interact
Yeah.
with a consumer facing brand. Social media, or in the physical stores or restaurants, etc. So I think that it is a really important thing to think about, and it also plays into what we talk about, this say do gap. So you again have things like the mission and values.
Mhm.
Are we doing those things? And if, for example, a brand has a really strong a brand voice and has good virality and is engaging, is that matching up with what it's like inside the company, and vice versa? Sometimes there's brand voices that are not quite matching up with what the organization feels like to work in. So I think about that a lot. I think about that I do some copywriting work as well, like for social copy and things like that. So I think about those things a lot when it comes to culture.
Does a lot of what you guys do consist of the future back method that you talk about?
Yeah, we spend a fair amount of time. I mean, so it's literally this archaeological dig that Krista talks about, where you just try to get clear in your head and clear with the leaders on, here's the current state of play.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the rituals. Here are the things that we say we stand for, and that's fine. And then we pose the question, where do you want to be in 5 years or in 2030?
Yeah.
So take us to that place. Let's go to that place. Let's be as clear as we can and write down in as much narrative detail as we can what you hope the company will look like at that moment in time, and codify that as best you can, and then come back to the day and say, for the future to be true, what are the changes we need to make today, and what does that roadmap look like to the future? And we find that to be an incredibly powerful exercise. Whether it's future back, there is another version of the future back exercise, which is a pre-mortem,
Mm-hmm.
where you describe what that future state is going to look like in advance, and then come back to today and say, for that to be true, here are the actions that we need to take.
Yeah.
We have a client, we're working through the first part of that journey, and 2 or 3 months from now, we will have them to do their own version of a 2030 or a future back, and then help them on a blueprint or a roadmap on how to move the company and the culture to the future.
Do you find that these companies like actually are willing to change? Like maybe they say that they are, but there's a lot that goes into change itself. Like, do you find they really commit?
It's actually really, really hard work. And, one of the things that we say in the book is, we look at where we sit today, there is more dynamic change. The pace of change is accelerated, and the dynamics are even more complicated
Mm-hmm.
than any other point in my career in business. So it's really, really tough to be running a company or being a leader in this moment in time. And the one thing that I think we all need to focus on more squarely is culture, and being intentional about culture. We've got one of the executives we interviewed, Tony Wells, who was multiple time CMO, who talks about culture being the software that the company runs on.
Mm.
If you think about it kind of in that context, it just says how important culture is.
Interesting. It's a good way to look at it. Yeah. So what does the culture design lab look like in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, you kind of ask people this question when it comes to their companies. Just asking you guys that, like, what does this look like?
Yeah, I think what we would hope with the book that we've written and the work that we do, um, I'll maybe use a quote that we use to close out the book, and then I'll answer the question in more specificity. Uh, we hope with this work that we will take companies and leaders on a journey with us where there'll be seeds that are planted that'll grow trees that'll create shade that none of us might get to see, but we will have created a better world, better companies that really work for all. What we're in the business of doing is taking great management teams and brands and helping them really understand the power of fully unlocking their company cultures with good practices and rituals and kind of thoughtful ways of operating. We hope that the work that we do will impact, millions of employees into the future with some of these simple exercises and tools that we talk about and stories that we brought to life from a narrative perspective. So we're really excited about the next 5 years. And as an aside, we actually do that same process personally. So I've got a 2030 plan. Krista shared her 20, I've got a 2030 plan that encompasses what we hope to do personally and as a family. Krista has her own version of it. So I'll check in with the kids to see how I can be helpful to their plans. But it's a powerful exercise that we absolutely love.
That's awesome. Well, that was all the questions that I had. I appreciate you guys taking the time and doing this. I think if you want to be intentional about your culture, which I think everybody needs to be like today, people should check out your book, Culture Design: How to Build a High-Performing, Resilient Organization with Purpose. I mean, that is so important. And I think that what you guys talked about here today, there's a lot of lessons entrepreneurs can take to start building culture from the beginning instead of having to fix the company when it's already much bigger and doesn't have this culture cemented in its foundation. So I'm just excited to see when the book fully comes out, and I hope people can go and get it and read it and apply it to their companies. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Ben, thank you. The book is
Thank you.
available November 11th, but available today for pre-order.
Awesome.